Okay, so here with me now is Una Darcy, and Una is the Sinn Féin candidate from Mullingar, Coole. But you also are a journalist with the...
Well, I'm a freelance journalist with Westmeath Examiner Midlands 103, but not at the minute.
And you've covered some of the turf cutting issues, and you covered the stories. You were with Sean and you got onto some of the issues. I liked your story where you were told to cover an old man who gets turf from the bog, and you said that's not the way it is at all.
Yeah, well, what I was saying earlier on was turf wouldn't have been something I would have known very much about. Growing up, we wouldn't have had turf, so it was only coming to Westmeath that I was introduced to turf as a fuel in homes. Sean called a meeting in the Abbey House in 4, and when we covered it, the editor kind of was looking for a colour story, something...
A magazine story, perhaps.
Yeah, something with a little bit of, well, when we say colour story, something with a wee bit of life in it, rather than a straight news story. And when I went there, I realised there were so many stories, and none of them were what we anticipated. Many families who are entirely reliant on the bog.
When you say entirely reliant on the bog, a lot of these homes, they wouldn't have their houses, sort of that you can use heating oil. There are to burn turf, isn't that right?
Well, they would have both. A lot of homes would have both, but can't afford heating oil. It's that simple. So they're relying on their turf. The families are going up. They're cutting in the bog.
So what's happened to the turf cutters now? They're having to buy turf when they have their own turf sitting there, is it?
I don't know if they have the money to buy turf. They're doing without. Well, the turf cutters will tell you they're cutting on their bogs. Full stop. They haven't stopped cutting. While there has been these restrictions put in place, the turf cutters will say they're continuing to cut their banks.
Do you think that this could perhaps kill the tradition of turf cutting for families and the bogs and all that kind of thing?
No, I don't think so. The people that are here and in other places, I mean, this isn't the only bog that has become restricted. Their message is very clear. They intend to continue to cut. They consider it's their right. And there is rights in place, and they're very ancient rights for people to cut. I know that where we are, like I said...
But it's not fair to have to fight for your right when you have the right, you know what I mean?
They nearly need to be advocates and experts in land law and experts in procedures and experts in writing letters to councils and the governments, and then there's all of this framework that they have to apply, and it's just typical of rural Ireland now. People are struggling across the board, and this is just one issue.
With the advent of media and social media and everything, now we can get the stories out there and let people know what actually is happening, isn't that right, through stories. Okay, so you're a candidate now for Sinn Féin in this electorate area. I can see that the popularity is rising for Sinn Féin. How do you feel that now? Obviously it's your first time out, is it?
This is my first time out with Sinn Féin. The popularity of Sinn Féin has just blossomed in the last year. We're on the doors. We've been canvassing since the end of November. You knock on a door, people are saying, look at Mary Lou, she really put it up to them. Pierce Doherty, he's in the Dáil, he's putting it up to them. But it's not just that, it's that Sinn Féin councillors have been working hard in the communities, and they've been a voice for people that haven't had a voice before. You know, there's been quite a lot of people in Irish society have been represented and have been well looked after, and there's just this sense that the community's in crisis, the story's not been reported, but on the ground, the people that are doing the work are Sinn Féin.
Do you think that these very people you're talking about that are in trouble, will they get out and vote with the right idea?
Absolutely.
With what they're thinking?
Absolutely. I think we're very much getting it across the board. Now, you probably can tell from my accent, I'm not from Westmeath, I'm from Tyrone. And I know just Tyrone was transformed by Sinn Féin. They worked so hard for the peace process, they worked so hard for communities across the board. Health, education, community services, revitalising weakened communities in rural areas, addressing poverty. I mean, poverty is not something we should be living with. It's an economic outcome. It's a failed policy. That all was done in the north, and it was done very successfully, even to the point of broadband, that's a market failure here. People, if they had broadband, would have successful small businesses, which is one of the keys to us recovering, is that people are able to make money in their community, keep money in their community, and Sinn Féin has achieved that in the north, and they're likely to achieve it in the south if given the chance. I have to say, the people that I work with in Sinn Féin are simply the brightest, honest, committed people. They're just Every time I'm at a meeting, I just leave with such admiration for them and for their core values, and it's very, very honest what they're doing.
Okay, so they're of the people, and if they can get the people to vote for them, the very people that need their votes will vote for them, it will bring change.
Absolutely. And I also would say, I mean, Ming is fantastic to hear speaking, and he was speaking about Matt Carthy. Matt Carthy is
he's number one in the independent
and well deserved. Matt Carthy is number one because Matt Carthy has been a councillor for 15 years, and people who know him know how hard he works and know how absolutely committed he is to change. But we have 4 and they're all excellent. Lynn Boylan in Dublin is just first rate. Martina Anderson is already elected. I know when they were talking about Matt being number 1, they were saying Sinn Féin's first MEP. I'd just remind people we have an MEP, Martina Anderson, and she is first rate. And Leah Nareda, absolutely brilliant. We're at conferences with these people. We were one in Drogheda less than 6 weeks ago, and they were speaking about where they feel Europe and Ireland, what our relationship should be. Now, we're Euro-critical. We're not sceptical of Europe, but we look for how best can it benefit Ireland. And earlier the boys were speaking about the core values of the EU. The EU was set up for food security after World War II. That was the main pillar of the EU. And then to support these small rural communities. And Ireland simply hasn't benefited from that. Our rural communities would benefit from tourism and supportive agriculture, and that could make a huge difference right away. And that's actually what the EU policies are for.
Do you think perhaps because we're on the periphery of Europe that they're not really very interested in us? We're not strong.
We're not doing it right.
Yeah.
We are not doing it right, and we have to put our hands up and say what we're doing is not working. 4.2 billion is the figure that was put on the tourist industry for Ireland last year, yet the top attraction was Dublin Zoo. Now, I don't believe that any tourist that came to Ireland chose Ireland because someone told them Dublin Zoo was first rate. That's not why they came to this country. They came to this country to see this stunning beauty, green fields, beautiful blue lakes, the Irish welcome, and that's the Ireland they want to see. There's no public transport to get them here. There's no support in place. There's no advertising for the Midlands.
And these are issues you're hearing on the ground all the way?
Absolutely. The issues we're hearing on the ground is people can't afford water charges, they can't afford the household charge, they can't afford their groceries, they can't afford their heating bills, they don't have broadband, they don't have consistent broadband, they don't have, and we're hearing that over and over again.
Okay, so Una, you've got 1 sentence left to get these people that you are trying to help to vote for you. Convince them.
You owe it to yourselves to have a better quality of life, and Sinn Féin can deliver that for you.
Thank you, and we wish the very best in your
campaign.
Thank you.